Thank you. Yeah, first, let me thank the Sonic Acts team for inviting me to do this talk. Yesterday, as you mentioned, also did a small performance at Stedelijk. And for those of you who attended, you know that I'm interested in instruments, building instruments and music, and also how one might use instruments as tools to investigate other subject matters than just music by itself, maybe more philosophical matters. So I will present one such project today called Material Vision Silent Reading. It's a kind of artistic research project, originally commissioned by the University of Tromsø. Tromsø is my hometown, so it gave me an opportunity to give something back to the locals from my hometown. It includes the creation of new musical instruments and a performance developed on this island, Bear Island, in the Arctic Barents Sea. Barents Island was discovered and named by Dutch explorer William Barents in 1596 after being attacked by a polar bear on its shore. Later, Norwegian geologist Balthasar Keilhaug would describe the island as the cadaver of the earth due to its complete lack of vegetation and very harsh weather conditions. So or my journey, it starts in the archives of the National Polar Institute of Norway, located in Tromsø. Shifting through thousands of scientific photographs, I was looking for examples of a particular landscape, or rather a particular way that a landscape affects my eyes or can affect your eyes. Yeah, here you see the island, or pointing to the island between Norway and Svalbard. Yeah, so I was shifting through thousands of photographs. Soon some stood out, photographs from this island, taken during geology and geography expeditions at the beginning of the 20th century. So I will show you some of these pictures now. Go through them, shift through them a little quick. As you can see, the photographs has a certain pre-modernist look, or what to call it. It's similar to more famous scientific photographs from the late 19th century expeditions in Northern America by Timothy O'Sullivan and his like. So for this project, I was looking for this type of landscape, devoid of any obvious points of attention. Landscapes that to a large degree is reduced to optical categories, a space made up of pure lines and deep perspective. These landscapes also inherits a sense of otherness and a sense of being uninhabitable and desolate. As you probably can see, landscapes where only people of great experience and knowledge, that it's scientists, can endeavor to venture. The theory goes that the photographs of this pioneering era was given this disorienting look precisely for that reason. In order to obtain funding for further expeditions, the scientists deliberately exhibited nature as a foreign, incomprehensible and difficult place, ready to be conquered by science, and thus given more money for the next expedition or something like that. Of course, also artists do used a little of the similar strategies sometimes. So you present a journey as exotic, or you, of course, have a certain instrument fetishism and things like that. That's quite similar to the way the science also aestheticize in this way. So, in exploring an unfamiliar landscape, one enters into this process of appropriation, where one is exploring whether one is exploring for the purpose of politics, resources, science, or art. It seems like the explorer's gaze cannot help but desire to possess and master the object in view, and this in turn bleeds into the aesthetics of how it is represented. So this is kind of a reflective background of the work that I'm going to show more of. So let's look at more of these images. Now I'm using an eye tracker mechanism to draw a line on the images you will see. In this case, I register the way my eyes are moving, like the first impressions, so I only give my eyes like 2 or 3 seconds, about the same that you are given. For the work on this archive material, I sat down in front of a screen showing the pictures one by one, and the tracker reads the movements of the eyes. So in a way, it's a good way to observe how the eyes quickly orient themselves in the landscape. The next step of my journey was to go there in person, so to Bear Island, and to do these readings sort of in the field. Questions I was thinking about was how would being there affect the mental disposition and the senses, and how the staying for a prolonged time in a landscape, tuning into it, change the way we view it, things like that. Needless to say, it's not the easiest place to reach. So I was looking for an expedition. I found a Nordic expedition of science historians going there last summer, so I could join them, and their plan was to walk in the footsteps of some of the early pioneers of science, polar science, and reenact their movements on Bear Island. On Bear Island there is only a meteorological station with about 6 people on duty for half year assignments or deployments. So we arrived at this place, and the next 2 weeks we spent crisscrossing the island on foot, sleeping in these old hunters' cabins that the meteorological station is keeping. And I will now show you a video where I install my instrument and do the first of many experiments. So let's see if we can have also some sound and for this video. Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, the definition of Barents Island is the cadaver of the earth, and now you can see that it also includes 80% of the time it's fog during summer. So you're lucky to see the sky if you're there during the summer, and maybe not the best place for an eye tracking project. I was starting to realize at this point, because while I was setting up, the fog was rolling in, and at the end I could not see anything. So the eyes have two basic motions: the saccades and the fixations. The saccades are these rapid shifts from place to place, from one area to another, and when you rest is a fixation, and the fixations are triggering the the hammers on the tuning forks. This becomes a very peculiar experience because sort of you get audible feedback to what you're seeing. So when you're looking at a stone or a mountain or something, you connect the sound with what you're seeing, and then because when you look back, you get the similar sound, and at the same time you're sort of feeling that you understand, you become apparent that your eyes are moving, so you're hearing your eyes in a way, and you become conscious of it. And being a musician, you know, at heart, I immediately start composing with my eyes. I cannot help it, but of course, maybe someone else can have a completely free gaze, but I instantly start to play with the landscape in a way. So I want to show you maybe a more musical, where I let the composer in me take a little bit more over and take control. Let me start again. Try to not have the... So I wanted to go on and end with showing a little bit more of the wildlife on this island too. I mean, the island is actually not a dead cadaver, but it's full of life. So we arrive at the big question. I know you're all asking yourself: Did he meet polar bears? Which I guess is the big question for anybody going to the Arctic. No, sadly or luckily, depending on how you see it, they have not been spotted on this island for quite some time, some years, because the ice, the edge of the ice, is moving further north because of the warming of the ocean, and the bear needs the ice to walk across during the winter to get to the island. We still needed to walk around with rifles and flares and stuff just in case. It's the rule of the area. But what this island does have is birds, like lots of birds, millions of birds, and it's on the southern cliffs of the island. There is this bird wall of birds, like Bird Mountain, the largest colony of seabirds in the northern hemisphere. I tried to do some eye tracking when we arrived at that place as well. Yes, and finally, here are some of the resulting prints I made, also like photogravure prints that were made, that now hangs on the walls of the University of Tromsø. Thank you for listening.